Hello everyone, welcome to our today's video. So in continuation of the schedule planning topics that we have been discussing in the last few videos, today we are going to take up estimation of activity durations. So just to create a connectivity or a context, last time or in the last video we talked about sequencing. Now, when you are sequencing the activities parallelly, you will also want to estimate how long will it take to complete an activity. Now, there are various techniques that we are going to discuss for estimation. However, one thing that we want to be very clear about is any type of estimation or any technique of estimation that you're going to use will always require historical information. Think about it. If you do not have the relevant historical information or if you do not have the relevant experience, how are you going to estimate that this is the amount of time I'll need to complete this activity? So, regardless of which estimation technique we want to use, remember that every estimation technique requires historical information. Now, what are the estimation techniques? Starting with analogous estimation. Analogous estimation is a very simple and quick estimation technique which simply uses the past experience and copy pastes it. Meaning, if we have done a similar activity in the past, we can say that last time it took me, let's say, 2 days to complete this activity, so this time also it will take me 2 days. However, this is not a very accurate estimate because every project is unique and the circumstances, the environment, the requirements, the stakeholders, there are so many factors that will be different for the given project. But yes, if you want to give rough estimates, analogous estimation works very well in that case. Then we have parametric estimation. Para is per, metric is unit. So as it translates, it's a per unit estimation technique where you want to um, determine the total number of units that we have to complete for a given activity, and then again based on your past experience you can identify or you can determine how much time it will take to complete 1 unit of work and then simply multiply. Say for example, I have to install 20 computers and I know I'll need approximately 15 minutes to install one computer. So 15 minutes into 20, which means this activity should take me about 300 minutes. Now, otherwise, this is very good. However, understand that you may not be able to break every activity into uniform units of work. Say, for example, I need to teach a particular module. Now, the module has about 20 slides, but I cannot say that every slide will take exactly 5 minutes and 20 into 5 I will need 100 minutes to teach this module. In this case, it's not possible to uniformly break the work and use parametric. So it has limited applicability. I mean, you cannot use it on every activity, or you cannot use to estimate every activity's duration, but wherever you can, you should. It's a simple and effective technique. Next up, we have bottom up. In bottom up estimation, we are basically trying to break down an activity into sub activities. So let's say activity A. So activity sub activity A1, A2, A3, and so on. and estimation happens at the sub activity level. So say excuse me, say for example, um, I have an activity where I need to go and purchase some material. Now the sub activities would be like, how much time will I need to um, drive to the market, then how much time will I need to park and walk to the shop, then um, select the products, billing, then packing and loading, and then drive back and unload. Now if you look at the sub activities, they are very detailed, right, and very granular in level. So usually you will not, or you will have high degree of confidence when you are estimating at the sub activity level. Say for example, 20 minutes, 10 minutes, another 20 minutes, another 10 minutes, another 10 minutes, and then 30 minutes. So I can say, okay, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100. So purchasing some material will require 100 minutes of duration. However, this is going to be time consuming, but of course it's going to be accurate also. With this, one thing that I want you to be cautious about is that this level of detailing is only done for the purpose of estimation. Once you have got your estimates, you should forget about them. If you have documented this somewhere, then delete it, discard this information, because we don't want you to start tracking your project at that level. This sub activity division is only happening simply for the purpose of estimation. So that's your bottom up, which is time consuming but gives us quite accurate estimates. Next up, we have 3-point estimate. See, 3-point estimate is sort of an extension of bottom up only, or maybe you can use it with analogous or parametric also. So I would not say bottom up, but the main idea in 3-point estimation is that we want to consider 3 different possibilities. What will be a most likely estimate? What will be an optimistic estimate? Then what will be a pessimistic estimate? So most likely, of course, is something that is most likely to happen. Optimistic is the worst case, sorry, the best case scenario, and pessimistic is the worst case scenario. Now, say for example, most likely an activity can be completed in 3 days, but in a best case scenario we might just need 2 days, or in a worst case scenario we can take up to 5 days. Now you have got 3 different estimates for one activity. Now to use this estimation technique, we are going to average out these estimates, or these different estimates. However, we are going to use a weighted average, where we are saying that optimistic and pessimistic have same chances of happening, whereas most likely has 4 times more chances of happening than these two. And you divide it by 6. Now why 4? See, this is coming from the PERT. This formula comes from the PERT technique, program evaluation and review technique, where the weights are fixed, that you have 1 of optimistic, 4 of most likely, and 1 of pessimistic, and you divide it by 6. However, if you want, you can use any weights. Say for example, you are saying um, I'll put a weight of 2 on optimistic. Fine. um, Most likely has 3 times more chances of happening, so we are putting a weight of 6 on most likely. And pessimistic has twice the chances of optimistic happening, so we can put a weight of 4 here. Or ideally, if I want to put it in this way, that's also fine, that optimistic 3 times most likely plus 2 times pessimistic. Now this time I've got 5 in the denominator, as in 1 data point for optimistic, 3 for most likely, and 2 for pessimistic. Sorry, 6, my bad. So now we are changing the formula and we are using this. However, this is not PERT. You can say that this is your own weighted average. Similarly, you might say that I want to have a weight of 2 on optimistic, a weight of 10 on most likely, and a weight of 5 on pessimistic. Fine. So this time you will be dividing it by 17. So anything works as long as it aligns to your scenario, that you are saying that in particular given example, pessimistic has slightly more chances of happening than optimistic, or maybe in another case you may say that optimistic has slightly more chances of happening than pessimistic, then you can adjust the weights accordingly. But remember that the fundamental is that you have to distribute the weights according to the scenario, and then while dividing you have to make sure that you are taking the total of the weights and then you divide with that number. And if you use this particular expression, then of course that is coming from PERT. So whichever method, whichever technique you feel is appropriate, fine, you can use that. I have given you the advantages, the disadvantages of all of them. And just to summarize, I'll take one small example here. Say, when I'm usually starting a new training session, on the very first day, in the very first session, I will give a roadmap of how many topics we will be covering and when we will be covering them. Now that is an estimation on my end, but that's an analogous estimation based on my past experience. Then I do bottom up estimation, which I generally tell before the start of every session, that this topic will take maybe 10 minutes, this topic will take 20 minutes, this topic will take 30 minutes, this topic will take 15 minutes. So all in all, in next 1.5 hours, these are the topics that we should be able to complete. So that's my bottom up estimation. Then somewhere I'm also thinking about that, okay, say for example critical path. Critical path should take about 15 minutes, but if someone doesn't understand it or they have some confusion, in a worst case scenario I may end up taking 30 minutes to explain critical path. Or in a best case scenario, if there are no questions and everyone understands it in one go, then I might just need 10 minutes to explain that topic. So 10 is my optimistic estimate, 15 is my most likely estimate, and 30 is my pessimistic estimate, and I can calculate my duration using some weighted average. I can't use parametric in this case, but I have given you another example that let's say if I have to uh, print, or if I have to create 20 invoices, and I know that I need 5 minutes to create one invoice. So 5 into 20, that's approximately 100 minutes that I will need to create those 20 invoices. So like I said, depending upon scenario, your comfortability, or how well do you think a particular technique will help you in a given scenario, you pick and choose and decide which technique you can use to estimate. I hope this was clear. If you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the comments. I'll be happy to reply. That's all for today's video. Thank you, take care, and goodbye.